In the grand theater of life, we all seek a comeback, a resurgence, a rekindling of our inner fire. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience. This is not just another podcast. This is a journey, a venture into the heart of human spirit, the power of resilience, and the art of reigniting our passions.
Welcome back to another episode of Reignite Resilience. I am your co-host, Natalie Davis, and I am so excited to be back with you all today. Pam, how are you?
I am good. I was looking at my calendar trying to think of when the last time we recorded. We had like a full week off. You were traveling.
Yes.
And it was so weird. I was like, oh my gosh, are we doing this still?
Exactly.
I'm glad to be back. And then I looked at my calendar for the next few weeks and I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, we're back.
We're back and it's full time. Exactly. Well, and it's so funny you say that because I looked at the calendar too. And it's like, you guys, a week feels like a month in podcast world, just so you know. If we take a week off, it's like we don't ever talk to each other. Also, I'm going to just have this confession so that all of the world will hear. I was preparing to have an inspector come through my property today, and I had this big Amazon box in my coat closet. And I was like, what is this? What would I have ordered from Amazon? It's your daughter's son's baby shower gift that he's now
5 months old.
5 months old.
Okay, well, I keep forgetting about it, so I'm out too.
Exactly. I completely forgot about it. It's now on my dining room table so that I will remember to bring it to you, but I'm pretty sure he's outgrown what I purchased, so I will make sure the receipt's there so that they can bring it back. Sorry, Glenn.
No, that's fine.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, you guys, we have a special guest today, and I am so excited to dive in, mainly because there's a great story, a great product, and I think just how we come to this point of creating our lives and what it looks like. But today, we have a best-selling author that's going to share some insight on that. And we have Glenn Plumby, who is the best-selling author of the book, A Charmed Life, Practical Wisdom for a Joyful Home and Successful Career. It just speaks to my heart. The title itself, I got so excited as soon as I saw the book. Glenn is a retired operations and marketing executive known for his impact on the convenience store industry and is the former executive VP and chief operating officer of a major convenience store chain. And he demonstrated exceptional leadership skills and strategic vision, which is huge. That's the space that I like to live in. And Glenn is committed to community service and has served on the boards for Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, NACS, and the Springfield Chamber. Glenn Plumby, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invite. Been looking forward to this.
Good.
Same. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. Well, you have a book that you are now promoting and sharing with the world. But before we dive into the book itself, tell us your story. I mean, going from a C-suite executive with years of experience in the convenience store world, nonetheless, to becoming an author, definitely a change of pace and a change of scenery. How did this all come around?
Well, it's kind of odd. I have 2 daughters, and I have a son that's 17. And once I retired, both my daughters kind of were concerned about me retiring and not being busy enough. So the one daughter bought me a subscription to a service called Storyworth. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Yes.
And basically what it is you get a question a week from this service, and you answer it. And then at the end of the year, they assemble all the answers together, put it in a book. And it's really more of a keepsake for my daughters to kind of memorialize things. Questions like, tell me about your mom and dad, tell me about high school, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm really close to them, and they really wanted to know more of that history. Well, one of the questions was, what goal do you have in retirement? And after working in the C-store business for 41 years, I really didn't want to talk about goals anymore. That was not my thing. So I'm a big golfer, and my goal was to shoot my age. And I don't know if you're a golfer, but I'm 65. And to shoot my age would mean I'd have to shoot a 65. Well, I'm not that good. My wife laughed at it. So part of what I do in retirement is I walk 8 miles a day. And my daughters were on me after the Storyworth thing was over to start just making some notes on things. Mm-hmm. So I started dictating some things into the phone. At night, I'd import it into Grammarly. I'd send them off to edit it. And before you know it, they said, "Hey, Dad, you have something here." So I started looking at it from that perspective. And then I started thinking about it. And really what I wanted to do is to help young professionals really move into the workforce and have a really good family life along with a successful career. So I sent the book off to a lot of the companies that I worked with when I was still working for Speedway, and got a lot of really positive comments about it. So I thought, well, what the heck? I might as well look to see. So I went out and found a publisher, and before you know it, I wrote a book.
Fabulous. Congratulations.
Never sat down, wrote anything out. It took me about 6 months to do the whole thing. And it was a lot of fun and took up a lot of time as I was walking 8 miles a day. So that's kind of how it happened.
That is amazing.
Kind of crazy, isn't it?
It is. No, not at all. I think it sounds just as it should be. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Pam, there's the solution. Before we started recording, something that our listeners may not know, I don't know if we shared this. Pam, you might have, but Pam and I both have a desire to write a book. I know that I have at least 3 that are in me. I don't know when I'm going to have the time to sit down to write those out, but we all have those moments where you can just dictate. I mean, technology is on our side. So just dictating as you're going through the day.
That's it. I mean, it worked out beautiful, happened pretty quickly. And my daughters were the first editors. So I really never sat down once to really write anything. It all kind of happened that way.
Yeah. It just was there. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn, with all of the years that you spent in like the executive space, before we get to the book, let's go backwards, but looking at the executive space, having this focus of giving future generations a tool that they can use to create that harmony that we're always seeking, right? It's how do we create the harmony between work and life and everything else that's happening? What did your journey look like? Were you able to achieve that earlier in life and implement some of the tips that you have in the book in your own personal journey?
I see myself as a pretty grounded individual, and my parents were huge influencers on me. Mm-hmm. And as I started my career, as I said, I worked 41 years for really the same company. And of all places, you guys are in Colorado, you've probably never heard of the C-store chain called Speedway.
Go ahead.
Have you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Speedway, Colorado was one state where I think we had 5 or 6 stores. We have 4,500 stores across the country. All company operated, and I ran all the operations and I ran all the marketing. So I started with their parent company, Marathon Petroleum, 41 years ago. And it's a great company. And it's one of those companies that I was an accounting major. And of my 41 years, I spent 4 years in accounting. So it's one of those companies that they let you move into other disciplines. So I moved in from accounting into marketing, then into operations, back into marketing. So it really didn't matter what your major was. They really built your career around how much potential you had and how many different looks they wanted you to get at the company. So it was a lot of travel. It was a lot of work. My pastor that I met 20 years taught me a really, really valuable lesson, and it's in the book, called Be Where Your Feet Are. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but we've all been to really nice places, maybe while working. We've all been on vacations. We've all been to really fun places, and your mind is somewhere else. I went to a lot of cool places when I was working, but I was always thinking about missing the soccer game or missing the basketball game or missing family time or my wife or whatever. And he really taught me to be where your feet are. And I learned that lesson probably 20 years ago. And that was probably the number one thing that helped me in my career be a better father and be a better employee. Yeah. So, and I traveled. We lived 5-6 different places. So our company moved us around. Luckily enough to end up in Dayton, Ohio for the last 20 years of my career, and the role that I'm in, and which was wonderful for my daughters and my son, because they were able to finish high school, be in the same place through college and everything like that. So it's not easy today. It really isn't. You think with Zoom meetings and things like that, it makes it easier, but it actually makes it a little bit harder, because when you're out on the road, you got to spend more time connecting with individuals in your workforce and things like that. So I give myself a B as far as how I really implemented what I am talking about in the book over my 41-year career. Wish I could have been better at a lot of things, but you know how it is. As long as you learn.
It's 2020 hindsight, right? Like that's the thing. But now you know, and you're sharing it and passing it forward.
Right. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. And that's why when you look at the 10 lessons, I approach it from both a personal and a professional standpoint, because the two mix, right? Mm-hmm. I've always believed that when you're working, you have your personal life on one hand and you have your professional life on the other. And what I found over 41 years, it's rare when both are really going well. And I've always fought to make sure one of them is doing really well while I'm working on the other one, and vice versa. And that's what I tell my daughters and a lot of my friends a lot of the time. Hey, man, when your work is going really good and your family's going really good, you got to enjoy it, because it just doesn't happen all that often, at least in the business I was in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see this in our, we're both professional coaches, and a lot of who we coach are either business owners or realtors. And so when you're in real estate, you're on 24/7. So easy to be on vacation and doing a deal poolside with your family. And I know I'm guilty of having done that for many years. And it's hard to unplug, because you do have that fear of, oh my gosh, if I don't answer the phone, I'm not going to have a paycheck. And so really hard for people to just be present in that moment.
Right. You have to. And like I said, it took my pastor teaching me that lesson. And it's a hard lesson to learn. And it's a hard lesson to stick to. But I had a particular instance. Are either of you golfers?
No.
So, Glenn, I own clubs and I've played once. I don't think that makes me a golfer.
I own clubs and I play once a year in a tournament, and it's always best ball. Now, my son golfs every day. So he's the golfer in the house.
Yeah. Well, I had the opportunity to play a course called Augusta National. It's where they play the Masters every year. Yeah. It's probably the number one invite you can have to ever play golf. And I told my wife when I left the house, I'm going to be where my feet are. I'm going to do nothing but just take this in. So we played practice round the first day, and I'm coming off the course. My phone's ringing. My supervisor calls me. He says, well, I know where you're at, but we want you to make a decision on this temporary assignment. They wanted me to go on a 3-month temporary assignment. Which was really good for the career, but really crappy for the family with everything we had planned. And I said, well, how much time I have to give you an answer? And he said, 24 hours. And I said, I'm going to be playing Augusta tomorrow, and I'm going to have this hanging over my head. Well, when I got to the hotel that night before, I made a commitment that I wasn't even going to think about it. Yeah. And the whole next day I played that golf course, never thought about it once. And from that day forward, I am where my feet are. So it took a hard lesson, but it was meaningful.
Yeah. And isn't that typically how life happens, right? When you're intentional and you say, I'm going to be where my feet are. And then you get the curveball of, well, what about this?
Right.
You've always wanted this.
life just never works that easy, right?
Never. No.
Yeah.
I think it's just the world testing us to see how we're going to respond to it.
Yes. I believe that.
So in your bio, when I was reading it, it said that you owe 30% of your success to your professional skills and then 70% to your personal lessons that you've learned over the years.
Yes.
So speak to that a little bit, because that's pretty amazing.
I got my undergraduate at a school called Miami University in Ohio, and I got my master's at night at the University of Toledo during work. So I had a tremendous amount of formal education. I also went to the executive schools at Indiana and Wharton. So, and you can't get in the world without that formal education. And when you just do the math, and I look at the sheer number of years that I was in school versus the number of years I had worked, it's about that 15, 20%.
Yeah.
But, the lessons that I learned academically were so important that really I came up with that 30% number.
Yeah.
Ironically, this has something to do with the number two. I've hired hundreds of college graduates in my career, and 30% failed. So 30% of the college graduates that I hired failed after about a 6 to 9 month training program. And it's really because they couldn't transition the academic side of the world to the business side of the world. So when I sat down and really tried to put a pencil to really how much of it was academic versus life lessons, the 30% number is really kept what coming out from a math standpoint, and incidentally from a number that people failed.
Wow.
That's significant.
Not very scientific, but that's kind of my view on it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. You talk about the importance of a time pie chart. So you're kind of our language, because we use that in coaching a lot. So you introduced to that. How do you use it? Or do you currently use it? Or was it something used in your business world? Or kind of share with us about that.
I in the book, I took an example of a 20-year-old and a 40-year-old. And really what I wanted to show was how through life, your priorities are going to change, and how much time you spend on the priorities has to be adjusted. So you're going to work a lot more. You're going to have a lot more friends. You're going to have a lot more fun time when you're young. Then you get into transitioning to family and kids and soccer games, travel and everything like that. It has to change. So it comes back to that work-life balance, right? And the way I put together the time chart, it's really different based on the phase of life that you're in. I've run into a lot of people that think they can do everything. And they do, but they do it crappy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they do a bad job across everything. And what I really preached to the kids that were on my team was, hey, you gotta be focused on a certain number of priorities and do them really well. And in time, the other priorities that aren't getting a lot of your attention might. So that's kind of how that worked. Did I do a good job of that over the years? I would say I give myself an F on that. And it's because two things. Number one, exercise. I learned in retirement how important that is. I never was a believer in stress until I retired. And, months after I retired, all the old aches and pains went away. It was all stress. And I was 40 pounds overweight, and I retired, got back on it, walk 80 miles away, drink water, watch what I eat, lost those 40 pounds. And I regret not doing that when I was working, because I'm certain that if I would have maintained that exercise structure while I was working, I probably would have been a lot more alert. I probably would have been a lot less grumpy. I probably would have been a better leader if I would have had that exercise throughout my career. And the second one is sleep. We talked about the pie chart. Yeah, I always work both ends of the candle, because I wanted to be there for my daughters and my son, and yet I traveled a lot. So there wasn't a lot of sleep, while I was working. And I realize now, everything you read now, especially at my age, how important it is and how sleep tends to lengthen, your time on earth. And so those are probably the two things that I regret as far as not following from a time chart standpoint.
It's the taking care of the body that you have. And the
Yes.
That's significant. I think now that you have this opportunity to reflect, like going back and thinking the two key areas that I would have prioritized are exercising and sleeping, typically not the things that are on the radar for the person that's, I hate to say, but that's on the hamster wheel, right? Like the person that's on the hamster wheel that's constantly going, the last thing they're thinking about is sleeping and exercising.
Right.
Or eating well. Those, might as well just put all three of those in the same category.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, so many of my friends that I went through my career with struggled with health today because they ignored it. I was lucky. I got on the wagon and feel better about it now. Make my wife happy about it because she always told me that she would never let me buy size 38 pants. So I didn't have a choice. I had to do something to get back into 36s.
Yeah.
She said, I'm drawing the line at 38. That's it.
She drew the line at 36s. And 2 years ago, I went to buy a pair of golf pants, and she gave me the 36s to put on, and clearly I couldn't get them buttoned. And she said, okay, it's time. I said, all right.
Dang it. I saw a clip of Warren Buffett talking to a group of high schoolers. And he said, if somebody came to you and said, I will give you any car of your choice, any color, any cost, any car that you want, what would that car be? The only caveat is it's the only car you're ever going to have for the rest of your life. How would you take care of it? And then he said, how would you take care of your body, which is the only body and only mind that you have for your entire life? And I was like, oh, wow.
That's a heck of a way to look at it. That makes a lot of sense right there.
It made so much sense to me. I was like, oh my gosh, no one ever tells us that. And when you're young and everything feels great and you don't need a lot of sleep, you don't even think about it. But if we knew that this is it, you can't get a new engine. You can't, change your tires. Like, this is it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that was such a powerful video.
And our company, I work for a great company, but it didn't do a very good job really stressing that. And you would think even today, high insurance rates and employee insurance and everything like that, they do a lot of work around the edges, but they don't really, make it as prominent as it should. Mm-hmm. That's why it's in the book. That's one reason why it's in the book.
And thank you for pointing that out and reminding us and encouraging us to prioritize those two pieces as well. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Reignite Resilience. We hope that you had amazing ahas and takeaways. Remember to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like it and download the upcoming episodes. And if you know anyone in your life that is looking to continue to ignite their resilience, share it with them. We look forward to seeing you on our future episodes. And until then, continue to reignite that fire within your hearts.